Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. Jordan Peterson recently went on Joe Rogan's podcast for a 3-hour long conversation, and well, it is actually rather brilliant. I guarantee you guys are really going to enjoy listening to Jordan Peterson. And one of the things, among all the other things that he was alluding to, is he gave a number of really important warnings. And if we're not careful, if we don't heed to them, we could end up imploding. We could end up just like the woke left. And obviously there is this term being flown around at the moment. James Lindsay is most notable for, I guess, explaining it the best way possible, like the woke rights. You have these bad faith individuals that claim to be conservatives, but really, as Jordan points out in this clip that you're about to watch, they're truly just psychopaths. They're a bad faith individual that will claim to be something they're actually not, just like in the leftist type, they'll claim to be something they're actually not. And they want everyone to go along with them claiming to be a conservative. They have conservative values, but really they've got these ideas that aren't great. And really they use God's name in vain. And the way they do that, they claim to be about God, be about what Christ is doing, but they'll use phrases in the wrong context, like Christ is king. And I'm referring to Candace Owens. They'll be really anti-Semitic. They'll go against what Israel, what God has told us to support Israel as Christians. We should be doing that. But nevertheless, you've got a lot of these people that will say highly anti-Semitic things or go highly against Israel and what Israel is doing at the moment. And also you've got these other people that will claim to be on the right, but really they just are continuing to push these nonsensical ideas that are really crazy. And Jordan calls it for what it really is. It's psychopathic in nature, and we've got to be very clear with drawing the lines and calling out the really bad faith individuals, the ones that you can actually tell now, and it is getting a little bit harder. I'll grant him that. And he actually has found the same thing. Like when you're in podcast world and you want to have someone on and you don't know wholeheartedly what they believe in, and then all of a sudden they start spouting these nonsensical ideas, what do you do with that? Do you still platform them? Do you still allow them to share their ideas because of freedom of speech sake? Or do you say, this is an idea for you and your friends to just talk about, or this is an idea for the masses to discuss? And what do you do with that sort of knowledge, right? Because we live in a world where there's so much knowledge, right? So how do you know who to platform? And I think Douglas was pointing out to Joe that you've got to be very, very careful. And what are you watering? What are you feeding? And Jordan, once again, you can tell in real time through the video that he is thinking about this very sincerely. And the way he articulates himself, I think, with a very difficult subject matter, I'm not going to lie, it's very difficult to explain this. He does a great job. Have a watch.
You also set that conversation up, but it poked up and made itself manifest in that conversation. And the issue is, how do you identify the psychopathic pretenders? And it's even worse now, and then make a barrier, right? Now, the right was calling for the left to do that for decades, and they didn't, and they couldn't, and the left is not good at drawing barriers, partly temperamentally. The right is somewhat better, but there's no shortage of monstrosity there. And so then the question is, how do you draw the line? And that's kind of what I was, because I've been watching these right-wing, they're not right-wing, these psychopathic types manipulate the edge of the conservative movement for their own gain. And a lot of that's cloaked in anti-Semitic guise. There's plenty of anti-Semitism on the left too, by the way. So it's not unique to the right.
Well, but particularly now.
Yes, particularly now. And so, you know, you've let your curiosity guide you, your curiosity and your desire for knowledge, this quest, you've let that guide you as a podcaster. And by the way, I'm trying to work through exactly the same sort of thing. How do you know, given your radical increase in stature over the last 10 years, how do you know when your curiosity and even your skepticism about the fact that things aren't the way that people say they are, because that's certainly been demonstrated in the last 10 years. How should anyone decide what guardrails to put up? Like, what do you look for? Do you have a conceptual system worked out for that? Like,
there's plenty of anti-Semitism on the left and now on the right. And you got a lot of these people, like I mentioned a moment ago, they're bad faith. They will manipulate themselves into conservatism. They'll call themselves a conservative and they'll say, I've got conservative values, but really it's just a guise to hide, even though they're not really hiding, their anti-Semitic remarks. And they're turning millions of people. You got millions of people that claim to be in the conservative world that will listen to them, that will agree with them because they've said a couple of things that are actually sounding good. But when you really dive into what they believe in and why they believe it and what they're actually saying, the more you should go, this is actually some dangerous stuff. This has got nothing to do with what Jesus said at all. This is not what Jesus would have said or done or how he would have acted. And that, to me, you are using God's name in vain to suit your own ideological bent or your own ideological narrative. And as Jordan pointed out, they're psychopathic in nature. They are the ones that have this Machiavellian persona to them. They're very, very clever. They're very intelligent, very good at manipulating people. There's one in particular that I've spoken about a number of times, and I used to listen to her all the time. And the more that I've heard her speak and the more I look at what I believe in and why I believe it, the more I disagree on so many different things. And as Jordan pointed out, and I think he's actually alluding to her in particular, I think you know who I'm referring to, Candace Owens, the more Jordan listens to her, the more stuff he sees, the more he's like, well, she is part of this manipulative group that has infiltrated conservatism. How is it that Candace won't even call out the Islamic regimes that are killing Christians in Nigeria or other places in the world? How come she won't call that out? But she's more than happy to say that everything is the fault of the Jews. To me, it's really interesting. And this is not an easy thing to actually talk about because you have lots of people on the right that, just like the left, will go after you. It's amazing to me just how many people will come after you when you point out an error, especially in conservatism. You're no better than the left. If you are doing exactly what the left do and you claim to be on the right, you're no better than the left. That's exactly what Douglas Murray was pointing out. It has nothing to do with freedom of speech. You can say whatever the hell you want to say, but you've got to be careful what you're saying. It's important to understand that fact. Now, there's one more clip that I want to show you of Jordan Peterson before we finish off. He's saying and explains a lot more about this topic of woke right. And I know that some people have unfollowed me and said, you're crazy. I've lost all respect and you're a nut job for saying the term woke right. It's laughable. How's it laughable? Like, we call the insanity of the left wokeness. Can't there also be insanity on the right with these sorts of nonsensical ideas that make absolutely no sense and go against history? Like Douglas is pointing out, saying that the ones that go after Churchill, the left did it, now the right's doing it. They're trying to change history. And another lot of people are saying very anti-Semitic things. They're going after the Jews. How is that not the same as wokeness? James Lindsay is very good at pointing this out. I love what James Lindsay is about at the moment because it's very, very clever. And Jordan, have a watch of this because he explains it a little bit more.
I think that virtualization has enabled the psychopaths.
Without a doubt.
Yeah, well.
Without a doubt.
That's a terrible thing because the psychopathic types, they're always the death of everything. Like, I'm seeing this come up on the right now. So imagine this. I've been working on a new theory of political psychopathology, and I like it quite a lot.
Is this where the term the woke right comes in?
Yeah, well, Lindsay is pointing at that, but he hasn't
Yes.
got the diagnosis exactly right. So it isn't woke. That's not the issue. It's not exactly.
I
He's
think
one
what
level.
they're talking about is like similar types of behavior.
He is talking about that. Yeah, no.
but
What
it's
he's
just, woke just lets you clarify in your head. Oh, it's like that.
Yeah, but the problem is
It's like Antifa.
Yeah, absolutely. But the problem is that argument is predicated on the claim that the ideas are the problem, like the woke ideas, for example, on the right or the left. But that's not the problem. The problem is that 4 to 5% of the population, something like that, is cluster B, that's the DSM-5 terms, histrionic, narcissistic, antisocial, psychopathic, or they have dark tetrad traits. They're Machiavellian, they're sadistic. That's about 4%. Okay, so the question is, how do these people maneuver? And the answer is they go to where the power is, and they adopt those ideas, and they put themselves even on the forefront of that.
Right.
But the ideas are completely irrelevant.
Right.
All they're doing is they're the Pharisees. They're the modern version of the Pharisees. They're the people who use God's name in vain, right? As they proclaim moral virtue.
Yes.
Doesn't matter whether it's right or left or Christian or Jewish or Islam. They invade the idea space, and then they use those ideas as false weapons to advance their narcissistic advantage.
Yes.
And so then you have the problem, and the right's going to face this more and more, particularly because the left had to face it when they were in powers.
Yes.
How do you identify the psychopathic parasites, 4% of the population, who are clothed in your clothing and waving your flags, but who are only in it for narcissistic benefit?
They proclaim moral virtue, and as Jordan spoke about, he's noticed on the right. And if you want to use the term woke right to make sense of this, by all means, but there's a level that's deeper, and in fact, it is so dangerous. We've got to be very, very careful of this. And if you're not aware of it, maybe you should do a little bit more research. But the thing I like about Jordan is the way that he thinks about the world and the way he thinks about ideas. And I'm not that intelligent, okay? I'm not saying that I'm anywhere close to Jordan Peterson, but I get where he's coming from because I've seen the exact same thing. The more I listen to the kinds of individuals that he's talking about, and I can name a few for you because I've been calling them out for quite some time, they are sadistic in their nature. They're going where the power is, and they're manipulating it and taking lots of people with them. And then if anyone calls them out, they get defensive about it. And they use their minions to go after the ones that have called them out on their craziness, like the defense over something. And they will love to blame one group of people. I don't know if you've ever noticed that. Somehow it is always the fault of Jews. Somehow, whether that's Ian Carroll, whatever the hell his name is, or Candace Owens, they'll always say that it's a psyop or it's to do with the Jewish people, a small, like 7 million population. It's somehow to do with those people. And that to me is dangerous. It's very, very dangerous. It's actually really sick to point the blame on one group of people, right? For your own Machiavellian, nefarious means. You've hijacked conservatism to suit your own benefits, to suit your own means. You get wealthy from it. It's so dark and dangerous. And I understand where Jordan's coming from because I've seen it as well. And I hope that you guys see it too. They come in, they sound great at first. They're incredible at it. They're great orators. They love to open their mouths, but they've got no idea what they're talking about. And they actually share falsehoods. They share the wrong kind of information. And as Christians, especially, we should know our Bible. We should know what Christ called out. And as Jordan said, these are like the Pharisees. Guess what the Pharisees did to Jesus for calling them out? The Pharisees killed Jesus. You got to look at everything that Jesus said. He confronted them. He called them out for their hypocrisy, their lies, their deceit, all that stuff. And they killed him. Obviously, Jesus knew that was going to happen, but he had to rip them a new one while he was there, didn't he? So as Christians, we should be fierce defenders of the truth and not be so beguiled by false teachers because they sound good. I always say, when in doubt, go back to the truth. Go back to the Bible. What does Jesus say about this? Especially if they're trying to change the Bible in any kind of way. What does the Bible say about this? What is the truth here? What's historical fact? What do we know to be real? And if they're so against one particular group of people, ask yourself why. Why? Anyway, that's enough from me, but you guys take care. Be blessed, and I'll see you all in the next video.